Emma's hands trembled as she stared at the man across the candlelit table, her wine glass slipping slightly in her grip. Those eyes, deep brown with flecks of gold, she'd seen them before. 10 years ago in a hospital room, where she'd said goodbye to everything she thought her life would be. "Are you all right?" His voice carried genuine concern, the same warmth that had drawn her to accept this blind date in the first place. She forced a smile, her heart hammering against her ribs. "I'm fine, you remind me of someone." What she couldn't say was that this man, Alexander Chen, billionaire tech entrepreneur and her company's notoriously private CEO, was the ghost she'd been running from for a decade. The man who'd left without a word. The man who'd broken her heart on the worst day of her life. But he didn't recognize her at all. The story began on a rain-soaked October evening in 2015, when Emma Rodriguez was 23 and believed love could conquer anything. She'd met Marcus, or so she'd thought his name was, at a community center, where she volunteered teaching art to underprivileged kids. He'd shown up one Saturday, sleeves rolled up, ready to help paint a mural. No airs, no pretense, just a man who laughed at her. Terrible jokes and stayed after everyone, left to help clean brushes. They'd fallen into an easy rhythm over 3 months. Coffee dates at the diner on 5th Street. Long walks through Central Park, where he'd listened to her dreams of opening her own gallery someday. He never talked much about his work, just that he was between opportunities, trying to figure out his next move. Emma didn't care. She'd grown up with nothing, raised by a single mother who cleaned office buildings at night. She knew the value of a person wasn't in their bank account. Then came the diagnosis. Her mother collapsed at work in December. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctors gave her 6 months, maybe less. The treatment costs were astronomical, and their insurance barely covered a fraction. Emma worked 3 jobs, but it wasn't enough. She was drowning, watching her mother fade a little more each day. She'd been sitting in the hospital corridor, head in her hands, when Marcus found her. She hadn't called him, hadn't called anyone, but somehow he'd known. "Whatever you need," he'd said, kneeling in front of her. "I can help." Through tears, she'd explained everything. The bills piling up. The experimental treatment her mother's doctor mentioned, but insurance wouldn't cover. The crushing weight of watching the only family she had slip away while she stood helpless. Marcus had held her face in his hands. "Let me take care of it. All of it. I can't ask you to—" "You're not asking. I'm offering." The next day, the hospital called. An anonymous donor had covered all her mother's medical expenses, including the experimental treatment. $250,000 paid in full. Emma had called Marcus immediately, crying, laughing, trying to thank him. But his phone went straight to voicemail. She'd gone to his apartment, the address he'd given her, to find it empty, a "for rent" sign in the window. She'd tried everything to find him, but it was as if Marcus had never existed. Her mother lived for 2 more years because of that treatment. 2 precious years Emma got to say everything she needed to say, to make memories, to not be haunted by what-ifs. She'd been grateful for the miracle, but the mystery of Marcus, why he'd disappeared, where he'd gone, had left a wound that never quite healed. Now, sitting across from Alexander Chen at one of Manhattan's most exclusive restaurants, Emma studied the man her colleague had set her up with. Same eyes, same slightly crooked smile, same way of tilting his head when he listened. But his hair was professionally styled now. His suit probably cost more than her monthly rent. And when he'd introduced himself, there'd been no flicker of recognition. "You're Emma Rodriguez, right?" he asked, reviewing his phone with a slight frown. "My assistant mentioned you're the creative director at Chen Technologies. I have to admit, I don't get to meet many of our employees personally. The company's grown so much since we went public. 5 years ago," Emma said carefully, "after you came back from what did the press call it? Your soul-searching sabbatical?" Something shifted in his expression, too quick to read. "Yes. I needed time to figure out what kind of leader I wanted to be." "What kind of person?" The waiter arrived with their appetizers, giving Emma a moment to breathe. This couldn't be coincidence, but Alexander showed no signs of remembering her. Had she changed that much? She'd been a struggling waitress back then, no makeup, hair always in a messy bun. Now she was polished, successful, the creative force behind Chen Technologies' award-winning campaigns. "Your colleague speaks highly of you," Alexander continued. She said you have an interesting background. That you used to volunteer at a community center in the Bronx? Emma's fork clattered against her plate. How did she know that? It's not on my resume, isn't it? His eyes held hers, and for a heartbeat, she saw something there. Recognition, regret, fear. He knew. Why? The word escaped before she could stop it. Why did you leave? Alexander set down his wine glass with deliberate care. The polished CEO facade cracked, revealing the man she'd known underneath. So you do remember. How could I forget the person who saved my mother's life and then vanished? Tears burned her eyes, years of confusion and hurt rising to the surface. I looked everywhere for you. I wanted to thank you, to understand. I left because I was a coward, he interrupted, voice rough. Emma, that winter, I was at my lowest point. I'd just lost my company to a hostile takeover. My so-called friends disappeared with my money, and I was spiraling. I volunteered at that community center because my therapist said I needed to reconnect with something real. He ran a hand through his hair, the gesture so familiar it hurt. Then I met you. You were the first person in years who saw me as just a person. Not my potential, not my connections, just me. And you were so full of light despite having so little. It made me want to be better. Then why? Because when I gave you that money, I liquidated everything I had left. My father's life insurance, my savings, everything. I was broke, Emma, completely broke. And I was ashamed. His voice cracked. You thought I was just some regular guy figuring things out, and I was. But I was also the former boy, genius who'd lost $100 million company and couldn't even keep a relationship alive. I gave you what you needed to save your mother, but I couldn't face you knowing I had nothing else to offer. Emma's breath caught. You idiot. I didn't want your money. I wanted you. I know that now, he whispered. It took me 5 years of rebuilding, therapy, and becoming someone I could respect to understand what I threw away. When my assistant mentioned setting me up with Emma Rodriguez, creative director who'd mentioned in her interview that she'd lost her mother 3 years ago, I had to know if it was you. You remembered my interview from 5 years ago? I've read everything you've ever submitted to the company. Every proposal, every campaign pitch. I watched you rise through the ranks and wanted so badly to reach out. But what could I say? Sorry I abandoned you when you needed someone most. But hey, I'm rich again? Emma laughed through her tears. That would have been a start. Alexander reached across the table, hesitating before taking her hand. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that the time I spent with you changed my life. You taught me what real generosity looks like. Everything I built after, the company culture, the charitable foundation, the employee profit-sharing program, it's all because you showed me what it means to live for something bigger than yourself. The Chen Foundation, Emma said slowly. The one that pays medical expenses for families who can't afford treatment. He nodded. I couldn't save everyone, but I could honor what you taught me. Pay forward what giving to you gave me. Emma looked at their joined hands, thinking of the scared girl in the hospital corridor, and the broken man who'd knelt before her, thinking of her mother's extra years, the thousands of families the Chen Foundation had helped, the man who'd hated himself. So much he'd run from the one person who'd loved him without conditions. I grieved you, she said finally. For years I grieved both you and the future we might have had. I know, I'm so sorry. But I also understand now. Sometimes the kindest thing we can do is save someone even if it costs us everything, even if they never know who we really are. She squeezed his hand. You gave me 2 more years with my mother. Because of you, I got to tell her about my first gallery showing. She got to see me succeed. That was everything. She'd be proud of who you've become. And you? Emma asked. Are you proud of who you've become? Alexander's eyes glistened. I'm trying to be. Every day I'm trying. They sat in silence, years of hurt and hope suspended between them. Finally, Emma spoke. I don't know if we can go back to what we were. Too much time has passed. I know, but maybe we could start again. As the people we are now. He looked up, surprise and something like joy breaking across his face. You'd be willing to try? You taught me that second chances are worth fighting for, Emma said. The least I can do is offer you one. Alexander Chen, billionaire entrepreneur, boy genius, and the man who'd once given everything for love, smiled the crooked smile she remembered. I'd like that. More than you know. Outside the restaurant, rain began to fall, just like it had that October evening 10 years ago. But this time, when they stepped into the night together, neither of them was running. They were finally bravely standing still,